introduce all four of us?
Right about now is the time that we
To break out the rhythm
should be
and
talking
the rhyme.
about our World Cup roster.
What's that?
We should be upset or happy or something. But instead, we're kind of indifferent. How
What's
do
the
you guys
World Cup?
How are you guys dealing? How are you guys coping with that situation right now?
I've never heard of this thing. World Cup? What is that?
It ain't the World Cup unless it's got America.
Well, I've been checking the internet, up refreshing every day, waiting for the U.S. roster to be announced. And when is that going to happen?
All the rosters this morning that were coming out, I'll be honest, it's kind of like I'm not choosing the situation. I still would prefer they be there, but it's kind of liberating to be able to enjoy this thing and not be worried or nervous or any of those things. Not be mad that our best player ever at the time was left off the roster.
I got to hand it to, I can't remember who I retweeted earlier today about the fact that, oh, Argentina didn't leave Lionel Messi off its roster.
So yeah, I'm excited about it. Like I'm happy that it's here, and I like looking at Germany's roster and seeing that the dudes who were left off would be our best players. I liked looking at that. I can't remember the dude's name, but the one that the video went viral online of him making the World Cup, finding out he's making the World Cup on TV. Yeah, and then Mexico's roster, which includes a drug kingpin but does not include Jonathan Gonzalez. Yeah, that's pretty interesting. So all that stuff's been pretty interesting, and it's been, I think, kind of fun. Side note, my voice is still going out from last week, which is why I wasn't here. It seems like Fox isn't going to suck as bad as we thought. I saw, they put out video of what their sets look like in Moscow. It looks pretty cool. They do have a lot of decent people. There's going to be a good amount of calling games off monitors, which sucks. But
and they do have Alexi Lalas.
But you know what's a good point. Rob from Stars and Stripes tweeted this, and it's so true. Speaking of Alexi Lalas, why are they putting all their eggs in the basket that we would actually want to watch Mexico? Like, you could be.
It does seem strange.
As he pointed out, you could be promoting Messi in his final World Cup, or Ronaldo in his final World Cup, or
hell, Costa Rica, Panama, like.
Because correct me if I'm wrong, but aren't most Mexico fans going to watch in Spanish anyway?
Probably.
Like, I would think that would be a more exciting and natural call for them than whatever Fox puts forward. So
I'm guessing the ratings they've had as they've promoted Mexico have been positive, so that's why they're continuing to promote Mexico. Just because you think I agree, a majority of the fans from Mexico are going to watch it in Spanish. However, you're going to get some that have kids that Spanish isn't their natural language and would prefer to watch in English.
Yeah.
Or, there's over the air, and maybe over the air you only get Fox and you don't, whatever. Like there are plenty of reasons for it. I do think it's a little bit of this idea that you're a fan of one or the other, though. It kind of misses the point. Like when the U.S. always has the most number of tickets purchased to every World Cup anymore.
Mexico fans.
And it's not all people going for U.S. games. It's that tons of people from all over the world live in our country, or are Americans, I should say. Not even that they live in the country. It's that they're going to the nation of their heritage, as opposed to the current nation they live in or may have been born and raised in. So it's not as though it's oh well, the U.S. isn't there, so who are we going to go with now? I think that's sort of what they're doing, but that's not the case in reality. It's not like, oh well, you either love the U.S. or you love Mexico if you're a soccer fan of this country. No, you could be rooting for tons of other countries. I guarantee there are people from every country represented in the World Cup living and probably born in the U.S.
Yeah, for sure.
So
we know we have Aaron Johansson for Iceland, at least.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of the maybe a little bit of the old school kind of view of soccer fandom in the U.S. that we only understand it from like one or two points of view, and that's it. Sort of like how we tend to believe like the EPL is the end all be all of world soccer, world football.
Well, I guess we've talked about this enough times, and here's what I'm wondering. Why the hell are we spending so much time worried about why Fox is promoting it the way they're promoting it? It's one of those things that they're trying to recoup as much money as they can. Other than not having US ads, I'm guessing most of the stuff was going to happen anyway. They're still going to promote Mexico. They still were going to promote the idea with this whatever 23 and ancestry thing and whatever. It's however they can to make money. That's what they're trying to do, is recoup what they put out there.
I think that's what's their best bet. So yeah, that's why they're doing it. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to. It's like, hey, the Cubs are out of the playoffs. Why don't we all get behind the Cardinals? No. And I know it's a lot more complex than that, but because, baseball fans are simpletons, but yeah, it strikes me as strange, but I'm still excited. And I'll watch as much as I possibly can because it's the greatest thing that there is.
Sandra Wilkeman.
Yeah. We're going to talk about a roster of ours. It's just not the one we wanted to talk about. It's the roster for our upcoming friendly in Philadelphia. And we know one of the spots. We've known one of the spots for quite some time, Mr. Pulisic, who's over here with Borussia Dortmund, if not now, very, very soon. They're going to be playing in Los Angeles against LAFC, one of their 2 trips to the United States. I'm not convinced he will be with Borussia Dortmund anymore when the second trip happens in July, but right now he's still...
I hope so.
I hope so too, because we have tickets. So,
and I have a Pulisic jersey to wear to that, but
it would be very much you to buy a jersey and then have your team extracted, have that player extracted from your team right after you buy the jersey.
Well, I think that's the curse of Combs. I think now it's all but a certainty.
That's not entirely true. Most of the jerseys I have lasted. I can't think of anyone I ever bought a jersey for that like immediately left.
That
Alexis Sanchez is probably the closest. I never bought one of those.
What was your
considered it, but
what was your last U.S. jersey?
My last one. That's a good question. I don't know. Yeah, yet another mix.
I just got the new one in mix. Just
I don't know what my last one was. I'd have to think about it or go look at my. Like I know the last U.S. jersey I bought, but I didn't get it personalized. That was the Gold Cup last summer.
I believe the last one you got personalized was John Brooks.
Wait, and how many more?
That's a good call. That probably is it.
And how many more appearances has he made subsequent to that?
He has been injured quite a bit. That's where I was going with that.
Either way, though, I will say, I bought it for a particular performance because I hated that uniform, but I did buy it for a particular appearance, and that appearance was phenomenal. So,
hey, VD
performance in Philadelphia.
VD Orozco wants to know if you're going to see Landon Donovan in Milwaukee, and I know the answer to that.
I am indeed. And Donovan has said he's coming. He's looking forward to playing in Milwaukee. So I haven't decided then, will I support Pachuca? Because we have talked about...
You have declared them as your
as I have declared. Team. They are my Liga MX team. Or do I go supporting Landon Donovan? Because I have said, I want a Leon Donovan jersey. I do have Donovan jerseys. I don't know what I'll wear that day.
Do you like sponsorships? Then you would like a Leon Landon jersey. I may try to make it there. I don't know. It's a midweek game, so it'd be maybe tough for me to get up there, but I'm going to try because I like Miller Park and I want to see Landon. But here's the thing. My current final memory of Landon on the field in person is a giant knee slide scoring the second goal in Columbus in 2013. I don't know if I want to make it playing for a Mexican team on a baseball field in 2018.
But come on, you would have gone to see Michael Jordan play for the... Were they still the Bullets at that point?
They were the Wiz.
The Wizards. You would have gone to see him play for them.
That's true.
Like you can't pass that up. Like, I mean, come on. I'm not even like a huge NBA fan, but I'm like LeBron James is right there. Of course, I'm gonna watch it.
Yeah. So I mean, I'll try. We'll see. Hopefully, I guess my last memory of Landon in person was meeting him. Technically,
true. Yeah.
Thanks to my son for sneaking me in that line and leaving you out of it.
That's a story we've told. Pretend that I could have come in too, like, oh, this is Uncle or whatever. Like,
Well, it's because his son.
There are 1,000
Chris,
stories you could have said. And
Chris, that's because his son understands who you really are, and that probably was safer for all involved.
This man is not my uncle.
No. I'm surprised he didn't start yelling, "This man touched me."
Christian really wants to talk about the fact that we're not playing in Copa America, that we said no. Did you guys touch on that last week? That was more of a last week thing.
I don't remember. I don't think we talked about it. I know I talked to some people on Twitter. I mean, I understand that it's probably because of the Gold Cup being next summer.
Yeah.
And we didn't want to do the thing of we
Two
split rosters
yeah.
and we go embarrass ourselves at Copa America again.
And then lose the Gold Cup too. Yeah.
Having said that, I think it's a bad choice. Part of me wonders, my call it tinfoil hat side does wonder, was it a little bit of vote trading for maybe something like the World Cup?
But two things. Number one, Chris, your tinfoil hat side is now your prominent side, so you really got to go.
Yeah, have we to talk? You're kind of like joining forces with the.
We'll come back to that. We'll come back to that one because actually, I think that's almost a show. That's almost a show in and of itself. I really think that could be a show in itself.
TJ and I have been talking on the side about you. We think you're kind of going in that direction.
But here's my point on the Copa America is
I just suspect that there are more things, more to all these stories because all these FAs are corrupt.
Well, that's not false.
They're all corrupt. Who cares? But the point I was going to get at with the Copa America thing is, okay, so the U.S. isn't going, but neither is Mexico. That's, I think, probably more shocking. That's probably more shocking of the two. And then so they put in Qatar, so everybody in that bracket gets a win.
And which may, I hadn't given any thought to the vote trading thing, but maybe the two of them not going together was some sort of, we'll give up these spots if we have your support thing, possibly. So
I think what kind of turned it for me was that Qatar got in, because otherwise, what is Qatar doing there?
No, I mean Japan makes sense.
I understand it's because they have a World Cup coming, but like there are at least 50 other countries they could have called that would have like gone instead of Qatar and been more competitive than Qatar, made a more entertaining tournament, like pulled in more viewership. If I can't explain it away by money, I start looking at what could be the incentive for these things, and that's where I start looking at, maybe there's something else going on behind the scenes.
So Pat, it raises the question: is Chris growing gray, or is that really just the silver from the tinfoil?
It may be both, but I mean, you know as well as I do that he's been going gray since he was about 20. So, maybe it's been the tinfoil all that time. Yeah, it's I guess I've said on this show many times I want us playing in big tournaments like the Copa America, but I kind of see the point here, and it's weird, but I kind of do. I never before has caring about or winning a Gold Cup meant as much as it kind of does this time around, because you kind of want to start building positive momentum. I mean, you could argue that we won the last Gold Cup and it certainly did nothing for positive momentum. So maybe I'm killing my own argument here, but I kind of care. Speaking of the Gold Cup, the first match is going to be at the new Allianz Field. It's not arena.
Yeah, is it? Yeah.
In Minneapolis.
What are they calling it? Yeah.
Allianz
Stadium or something. Yeah, whatever.
That's a fun road trip for us. That'll happen.
Yes, indeed. USfanTV will be on tour at the opening round of the opening game of next summer's Gold Cup.
So mark it down right now on your calendar.
Absolutely, yeah. 100%. That I can guarantee. I'm okay with it, and I guess I understand the decision, putting prioritizing the Gold Cup above Copa America. If this is the beginning of we're only going to do the Gold Cup every 4 years. If it's still Gold Cup every 2 years, then why are we prioritizing it? Who cares? Just go to Copa America instead. I know it doesn't matter anymore, but whatever.
But again, why is Mexico doing the same thing? That's the one that puzzles me. I get the U.S. doing it. Mexico is the one that puzzles me because they can put a B squad in Copa America and they're going to make the finals too, or at least the semifinals, and they're going to still be successful at Copa America.
You mean Gold Cup? Their B squad's not going to make the finals of Copa America, but
no.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I apologize.
But realistically, we've made the finals of the Gold Cup with a C squad at best too. we could do the same thing. And hey, that gives you a chance to use guys like Josie Algor and Michael Bradley, who I don't necessarily care to see in a U.S. uniform anymore because to me they're just too old. But
Yeah,
they're certainly not so old that you couldn't play them anymore, and that would give you a chance to, hold down the fort, so to speak, while you send the future to go play the real challenge.
But we could talk about that until we're blue in the face in that sense. But it's just like I said, the U.S. not going. Okay, I get it. Mexico not going for the first time in 9 Copa Americas they haven't gone. I think this is what I just read. Oh, and the answer to the stadium is Allianz Field is the one in St. Paul.
Okay.
Field.
Excellent. Let's go get a Juicy Lucy and watch the team at Allianz Field.
Hunter, what is an uninformed answer? Sorry, I was.
I think you might be talking to other people on the chat.
Maybe.
But I wouldn't doubt that we had an uninformed answer
true,
too.
The Du Noir, we don't really have an A, B, or C squad right now, but that's not to say that we don't in 12 months' time. I mean, right now, there's probably 30 guys that you could claim could all play and possibly be starters. But I don't know. I picked 23 guys for the upcoming friendlies, and I didn't actually count to see. I got a few MLS players in there. So figure there's a handful at best MLS players in my 23. We could pick another team just from MLS guys. There's I might have. I think I have one Liga MX player in there. We could look at some of the players there as well. There are a few that you could choose from. Landon Donovan, of course.
Should we do that right now? Because my voice is starting to go out again.
We can get there in a minute.
Yeah, you can talk.
But anyway, the point is just, while you're correct, we don't necessarily have an A or B or much less a C squad right now. For sure, we do have a fairly large group of players who are becoming, I don't know if you can call them mainstays yet, kind of because you can't determine who's number one, who's number three, but there are enough players coming in that our squad is gaining depth. It's just a matter of now who stands out as the top of that.
You know what's weird is I thought we were deep, like around maybe March. Wow, we've got some choice. We can make some decisions. And now I look at it and I'm like, who do you really want to be a striker for this team?
The problem is that we're deep in certain areas, like overly deep in certain areas. Central midfield, we got a ton of players, but we're short on like wing play. Our defenders, I think we've probably got a good 2 to 3, maybe 4 central defenders right now. But even our fullbacks, like, it's still kind of a question a little bit. I mean, DeAndre, I think, is pretty well locked in at this point. I don't think anyone's questioning that. But on the left, who do we got?
And again, I'm going to use my sport analogy from other sports comparison here. When you have a bullpen by committee or you're rotating your quarterbacks like you do in college, it means you just have mediocrity all the way around. That's your depth thing, Pat, I think that you're looking at. And there's 21 MLS players that have been named to the provisional sides for the World Cup. So none of them play for the US. Yeah. Weird.
All right, Chris, why don't you tell us
all right.
Why don't you unveil this bad boy?
And let's do it. Let's start with the goalie so we can tell you where you're wrong.
I've got Zach Steffen, Ethan Horvath. He is playing again. Now, I guess you could say, I took this as a chance to maybe get some confidence back. I mean, he totally blew that goal against Portugal, whatever that was, November. So I want to see him possibly, potentially, hopefully get some confidence back. And you got to look at what's he doing to get in place to start for the new season. He came in, he struggled to get starting time. He got the starting job. He lost it. He just got it back to finish the season. I think that's a good sign, which is why I've moved him in here. But I'm hoping this turns into a way to gain some confidence for him so he continues. Third, I've got Bill Hamid. I'm not sold on the third spot. To me, Hamid is there because I think you look at him as a steady hand. You know what you've got from him. Stefan, I feel kind of is the same, but I feel like he's not struggling for playing time right now like Hamid was doing. So that's why I've got him. Horvath as another potential for the future. Hamid, to me, is a guy who's kind of like in a sweet spot in his career, just isn't working out in terms of playing time. So I've got him as a third choice, but I think you bring him in kind of like Guzan was in for so much of the last few years, where last couple of years at least, where his club position wasn't great for him personally, but you kind of know what you have from him. He's not going to be a bad choice if you have to stick him in.
Yeah.
Are we in agreement though that at this point Zach Steffen is pretty much the number one for the U.S.? Would you go that far?
I think currently, yes.
Yeah. My only question about that is the first friendly is not an international date. Not
True.
like it would be because everybody's off except for us basically. So do we know that MLS teams are going to let their guys go for a U.S. friendly? I think they usually have.
I would assume. I would question the first one and assume maybe they won't because of the fact that without a World Cup without a U.S. World Cup to interfere with them, while that does give them the chance to maybe, hey, we don't have to worry about these guys disappearing for a month and a half, whatever. There's less incentive for them to give players up. So I could see where maybe the first one they don't, but
I mean, MLS and U.S. soccer work kind of hand in hand, though. I feel like,
it's all
kind of like one group sort of owns them both,
and it's all a conspiracy of Soccer United marketing, all a conspiracy to hold the man down.
Nice shirt.
Pro Rel would fix it.
Well, and it's all a conspiracy to hold the man down for the NFL.
I've heard that one. They want to keep
All right, Chris, let's move on.
Yeah.
I'll give you 2 out of 3. What about Yarborough?
My problem with Yarborough, I considered him. I don't see him surpassing Stefan by any means. And to me, then he becomes another guy who I guess he's Horvath. Then like I could see him, I guess, replacing Horvath, and that Horvath hasn't had a strong season this year. But so maybe Yarborough's playing time helps, but I don't think his ceiling is as high as Horvath's, and so I think Stefan kind of takes that sort of MLS spot in there and surpasses him.
Well, that's a good question. With Ozzy asking about Jesse Gonzalez.
He's hurt, right?
Well, he's hurt. He's hurt again. But how does he figure it? I mean, like I said, I think right now your 1 and 2, to me, are Zach Steffen and Bill Hamid. I think Bill Hamid is your number 2
over Horvath.
Yeah, I still think so. I think because Bill Hamid, like Chris said, he's the steadier hand. If you had to put him in on a moment's notice, I think you know what you'd be getting a lot better than you would Horvath.
Yeah.
Horvath.
To me, Hamid is Guzan.
Bingo.
Or
yes.
like Ramondo, basically. Where it's like, he's going to come in. He's going to try his best. He's going to be a solid keeper. He's not going to make any like big. Well, that he's not going to like fuck it up. Basically, he's not going to go in and choke necessarily. Like he's got enough experience behind him that he's not going to be terrible. So he's not going to half-ass this. He's not going to embarrass you.
TJ asked about Sean Johnson. I think our TJ on this show is
Sean Johnson. Again, I've watched him play, and I've watched him play with NYCFC, and he's got a better team around him, no question about it. He still doesn't read the field worth a shit. And I'm sorry, on the international stage, he would be exposed like nobody's business. I think Ozzy's point about Jesse Gonzalez, I'm still excited about him. He's still young. If he's healthy, I think he might factor in. I guess I forgot about him because he's been hurt seemingly like every chance you need him to be healthy. But I think with the way Zach Steffen played the second half of 2017, I think he's really taken the number 1 job. Now you got Jesse Gonzalez has to start stepping up to take it away from him.
If he can get healthy, I'd love to see him in. To me, he kind of deserves a chance because it was, I assume, it was sold to him last summer. The Gold Cup was sold to him last summer as a reason to switch nationalities. And then that he never played. To me, it's a bit like another certain Gonzalez. it's kind of a cheap win, I guess, to like dangle this potential in front of someone and then not give them the chance. Like if all you've done is rob them of potentially playing for the other country, to me, it's a pretty poor way to treat young players.
No, I think realistically they thought Jesse Gonzalez has a future, and I still do because we've seen him play. He is absolutely when healthy, he's phenomenal, and he's still young. I just think Zach Steffen has shown the same level of potential upside to him, and right now because Jesse Gonzalez is hurt, Zach Steffen's taking the job, and now you got to take it away from him. All right, let's move on. Let's get to the good points.
All right, defenders. Number 1. Jeff Cameron. I'm kidding.
It should be Jim from The Office looking to the camera.
There's no way that Dave Sarakin is giving Jeff Cameron a job ever again. Matt Miazga, Herb Brooks, Cameron Carter-Vickers, Tim Ream, who I consider too old, but hey, he's back in a playoff to make it into the EPL again. And he's kind of a backup guy anyway. There's not a lot of age or a lot of experience in the defenders that I've picked here. So to me, he kind of fits that role. DeAndre Yedlin, of course. I put Jorge Villafana in here. He's really,
he was
I think,
good in the last game.
He was. And that was kind of why I did it. He's also, to an extent, an old hand in this group. Like everyone else in my group here is based in Europe. He's the one non-European defender that I've got. I sort of see him as somebody who can carry a little bit of the experience of the last 2 years over to this current team. You don't want to bring the bad stuff, but you also want these guys to know a little bit what to expect in an international game. The last 2 spots, I've got Anthony Robinson. I'm hoping he finally gets a shot here. I also want to see him get a role or get some time with the U.S., so maybe encourage them to stay with us and not switch allegiances. And finally, Shaq Moore.
Not unlike the last game, then.
No,
a little bit. A lot of these, I will admit, I took a lot of them from the guys who played in March, or at least were in the roster for March, because most of them were who we wanted, and then added some other players who, like John Brooks, are healthy. And look, I want to see Miazga and Brooks next to each other and see what happens.
I would love to sit there and argue and say, Chris, you're an idiot, but I can't argue with really any of them. Even Villafana, I thought for the same reason you did. He's the steady hand. He is the veteran of the group that's been down this road before. So yeah, can't argue with any of them, Chris, unfortunately, which really makes a bad show. But all right, what do you got for midfield, buddy?
Midfield. We'll start with the obvious. Somebody you may have heard of, Christian Pulisic. Weston McKennie. I'm going Keaton Parks. The rumor is he's getting called up. I figure if you're getting some playing time at Benfica, why the hell aren't you getting a shot in friendlies for the U.S.? Let's see what you can do. Kenny Saif. I want to see him get some more time. I also don't have a lot of guys who can play wide here. So I see him as a potential winger or, somebody who can at least widen the field for us. Darlington Nagbe, Paul Areola for the same reason as Kenny Saif, I should say, as someone who can, again, widen the field.
Your captain, Paul Areola, maybe?
Yeah. Tyler Adams and Kellen Acosta. 2 guys who potentially have similar roles, but I don't know. I want to see what they can both do now in the U.S. without, say, Michael Bradley there, or see what they both bring.
Kind of like we talked about earlier.
Who could match up maybe with somebody like McKennie?
Like you mentioned this earlier in the show, Chris, but that there are some names in that group that you go, okay, that's exciting.
Yeah,
that's a bright point. Like, yeah, that's if we do have depth anywhere. I don't want to say we have depth again because that really came back to bite me. But if we do, I would think it's in midfield.
Again,
absolutely.
Well, and you mentioned Michael Bradley, and we talked about it a little bit last week. Chris, we'll throw this one on there too. Do you bring Michael Bradley in and Give him a run out in the back and see what he can do. These are the types of games that you would do it in.
As a central defender?
I totally agree. Yes.
Yeah.
We mentioned this. I've said in the past that maybe come like 2022 or something, maybe a central defender spot was where he fits, because especially if you want to play out of the back, he's a solid guy who
he was already sitting that deep anyway.
Basically, yeah. He might actually be moving forward to do this. He's calm with the ball at his feet. He can still play some long balls. But, if nothing else, it just gives a place for the keeper to play the ball out of the back. It gives him a safety valve. It gives the other defenders a safety valve. And his read of the game is good. His ability to, spot runs that guys are making through midfield, or in this case, probably that forwards are making, is good. It's some of the best in kind of the group of potential players. But he doesn't have the speed to truly continue in midfield, especially in another 4 years. But I don't know. I mean, at this point, I think our central defenders are stepping up enough. And now that Brooks is healthy again, at least for the time being, I didn't really consider him here. I mean, I looked at who was available and went with kind of what I hope to see. But I don't know. Bradley has the potential to still have a role.
I still think at some point you at least give him a run out, because you've seen what he can do against some pretty good competition. I think it's worth at least a run out.
Maybe he becomes the new Cameron. I mean, while I said Cameron's a joke, it was largely because of Dave Sarakin and his age. But one of the things Cameron truly showed was that having somebody with a lot of experience who can handle the ball in central defense is a good thing for us. It's a positive thing for us controlling the ball. It's a positive thing for us, maintaining a presence in our half of the field.
All right. Sandra wants to know if you said Weston McKennie. You did, right?
He did. Yeah, he did.
I did. I don't know if you did.
But it did spur a question for you two chuckleheads. What do you do with McKinney and Pulisic? How do you pair them together?
See, I consider McKinney more of a box-to-box player.
Right, he's like an 8, right?
Kind of, yeah. Whereas Pulisic probably becomes the 10 then in just kind of an attacking role, and you kind of don't give him much responsibilities past like the bottom half of the center circle.
Fair enough. Like I said, I just wanted to see how you guys were envisioning this.
That's my take.
Well,
the big thing.
I was just going to say, because I think Pat's got a good soccer mind, and while you're here, so we might as well ask you too.
Yeah, I agree with Chris. I think that's exactly how he fits. The bigger question I have is, do you have Pulisic play centrally, or do you push him wide, or just as Bruce Arena did? One of the things he probably did correctly was you give him the freedom to give
him a free role,
what he wants. Yeah.
Well, and that's exactly it. You do what he wants. You do let him go wherever he wants. You definitely start him central, because if you put him out wide, you now are, and we've talked about this before, the sideline becomes a natural barrier, a natural defender against him. And with his creativity, you want to give him as much room as you can to utilize as much space as he can.
Let's do strikers.
Christian asks, is Keaton Parks an 8 as well? It's unclear. I mean, he can play, I think, as an attacking midfielder. He can play, he's kind of a central midfielder. It's a matter of, is he kind of a box-to-box guy, or is he an attacking midfielder? And where does he fit in our national team scheme? Because we know probably McKinney and certainly Pulisic are ahead of him. So
I mean, I've only ever seen
he back those guys up.
The guy. So
I know.
I need to see him play in a game.
Exactly. But
all right, so whatever. So what do you got for strikers, Chris?
All right, strikers. I have Bobby Wood, who to me, I almost question it because of what's happened this season for him.
You're trying to give him a boost?
At the same time, I kind of see it as he still can perform in a U.S. uniform for the most part. And on top of it, I mean, he didn't look great necessarily in March, but who else has some experience and we know has a track record of success in a U.S. uniform? On top of it, hopefully he's moving this summer. Maybe this gets some positive movement for him.
The first question, Chris, is who cares who has experience at this point? These games are irrelevant. This is where you get guys that you bring guys in to give them experience.
And I would say the rest
Wood
of my choices don't. But
Bobby Wood to me is the equivalent of like Steve Sachs at the end of his career, Mackie Sasser, the catcher who couldn't throw it back to the pitcher. That's what Bobby Wood's become, unfortunately. He needs to find something to get his confidence up, because that dude has a serious case of he's got the shanks, for lack of a better term, really. So who else? Bobby Wood and who else? Please tell me you've got better, or else I'm going to just keep mocking you the whole time.
I've got Tim Weah.
Okay, that's fair.
I went with Andrea Novakovic because
you're from Wisconsin.
Because I want to see the local kid get a chance. And on top of it, I don't know, it's not that he showed a ton in that March game, but he had some poor first touches and things. But I don't know, it was his first run out. I kind of took this as he's in Europe and he's available. And
yep, I'm going to say this. I don't think Bobby Wood probably gets the call up because, for what you said, to the experience level. I saw it in the chat box earlier. Josh Sargent. I would love to see. He's my fourth. He's
the fourth one that I hadn't gotten to yet.
Okay.
Part of the reason, like I said, that I went with Bobby on the experience was Tim Weah and Novakovic have one cap each. Josh Sargent has one, I think, now. Didn't he get something last fall?
The team needs a ginger. It needs a ginger.
Yeah.
The first ginger since really Alexi Lawless. It needs a good ginger.
Anyway, I felt like somebody there needed to have a little bit of experience, so that's why I gave it to Bobby. Also, like I said, you want some kind of positive momentum for him, hopefully, going into the summer, so maybe he signs with someone else and gets some playing time, and maybe doesn't have to go play in Bundesliga 2.
What about Iceman? I'll be honest, he may be hurt again, but I don't think he is.
If the wind is right, he's probably hurt.
On the one hand, I love the guy because he does bring something to our forwards that no one else really does, and that's the ability to actually play the ball. Bobby can run and finish, perhaps, but he's not going to dribble around guys or seek out somebody who's making a good run. Johansson does all those things. If he was just built a little stockier, I think he would be. I think he would have been our answer for the last 4 or 5 years now.
Well, I mean, healthy. He is the guy, but he probably would have figured. He's 27, so he's on the edge of maybe he's the guy who comes in the 60th, 70th minute going as you go forward. But again, that's not a bad one. That might be another one to replace as opposed to Bobby Wood. If you're going to go no experience, then no, but then neither of them. But if you're
Julian.
Julian.
Yeah, boy.
Julian needs to actually be good in Bundesliga 2 before we start looking at him. But back with Alabama Ice there, not a bad chance to see if he's what he has left. Again, these are games that
I certainly wouldn't be against it. I've been a fan of him for years because, like I said, he does bring something that none of our other forwards have, an actual ability to truly play with the ball and to create things. And
okay, TJ Sala wins the night. Breck Shea is only 20. With that outstanding finish on Friday night, you gotta almost consider Breck Shea a lock at this point.
Nobody else is going to take photos with 2 guns in the air and an eagle on his chest. And
I'd say nobody else is going to miss that goal except that Wando missed something similar. So Wando just didn't trip over himself to do it.
Christian Ramirez and Christian Roldan. I'm not saying I didn't consider either one of them. I just feel like the guys that I mentioned here either have a higher upside or are better positioned right now. I mean, I went somewhat with guys I think will get picked, like kind of Jorge Villafana, and guys that I hope will have a chance and would like to see something from, like Keaton Parks.
I'm not, and you guys will have to explain it to me. Everybody has this high opinion of Christian Ramirez. I think he's a good player. I just don't see he has that level of quality, especially when you consider where he plays versus what's in front of him. And I think that's why I've always looked at him like, everybody seems to really want Christian Ramirez to be there, and I'm not, and I don't see it. I guess that's kind of.
Some of it might be where he plays. That it is Minnesota, but to me, part of it, or part of why I kind of see other players as potential is he's what, 27, 28, something like that. He's near that age of where I'm like, yeah, so what? Because in 4 years, does it matter? If you're 27 and you are the best we have, that's one thing. I mean, it's why I don't totally write Josie Altidore off, because he'll still be in the age range in 4 years that we could get some serious minutes out of him. I just kind of see it as, if there are younger guys who are already at least at your level, especially right now, I'd rather go with the younger guy.
Well, yeah, Christian Ramirez is 27. You got that right. And this just in, Josie Altidore is he's a power forward. I mean, he can run people over. He can run through people.
He's quick.
No, he's not. I wouldn't put him at either of those. But he runs through people, and he's good for.
Either know what I said or you don't.
He's good for a yellow card here and there from running somebody over.
There's an AO chant about him, TJ, that we're not going to say on this. It's not really. I shouldn't say it's an AO chant because they'll get upset because they're very clean and proper. There's a chant that some in the U.S. soccer community like to say about Josie Altidore that goes something like, Altidore, he's fast, he's quick. He's got a giant something.
Giant combs.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we got this. But that all said, with when it comes to Josie, is he does bring something to the game that, again, you're talking about fills a need, Chris. Josie does that. There isn't anybody who can do what he does, and that's why he may still figure, again, maybe not as a starter, or maybe a starter under the right circumstances.
Yeah.
But that's why I think Josie still might have a part to play, as opposed to some of the other guys. I
don't disagree there. Yeah, I mean, I don't write him off because while he is 28, I think now. So yeah, by age, I'm kind of like, okay, we'll look at other options. It's true, we don't have another guy who is sort of built and plays the way he does, and then on top of it, especially with some of the teams we play, you know what you get from him. There is a certain comfort there if we need him in certain games where for the next few years he's probably a good option or a very serviceable option. And I just look at it as right now, when there's not a lot to play for anyway, why don't you try out the younger guys and see if they can figure something out? Maybe we don't need somebody who can bully defenders if we come up with an option where we can now pass around defenders and we can play prettier, cleaner, and score faster.
No, you're again. Wow, I'm agreeing with you more than once in a night. You're spot on with that. If there are better options, obviously you go there. But I think, like I said, I still think he's going to fit a need at some point again for the skill set he does have. And if you're talking about anybody, even bringing in Christian Ramirez at 27 and Josie's 28, Josie's proven. Christian Ramirez. Yeah. If Christian Ramirez was really that special of a player, he'd be proven at this point. He's not. He's not going to be. He's a fringe. He's your Gold Cup in years that you don't give a shit type role at this point.
He could essentially be what Herculez Gomez was in 2010, where it's he wasn't necessarily going to make the roster straight up, but under the right circumstances, you need somebody who can fill a certain role. Herculez fit that spot.
And if we're talking about guys like Josie Altidore and Michael Bradley to fill certain roles at this point, that means we do at least have somewhat of a rosy picture of the future, which it's going to come crashing down on our head. Well, no, it's going to be a 48-team World Cup. We'll be fine. Stand a chance again. We stand a chance again.
About a year ago, we also were talking about how Emerson Hyndman could do all these things, and the last 12 months have not been good for him.
I forgot about him completely, but he did. Yeah. Didn't he start for Bournemouth in the past?
Yeah, he started for Bournemouth to end the season. But
So realistically, we have no
somewhere
idea.
else this summer. Yeah, yeah. You know, this is all a crapshoot because I mean, injuries, whatever, could change everything.
All right.
I mean, hell,
what about Zardes?
Part of the reason.
What about Zardes? We need Zardes back in his first touch.
Deft first touch.
If he was just a run onto the ball striker, I mean, if he's essentially Bobby Wood, I can't totally argue with it. I mean, he can fill a role. The thing for me is Bobby Wood is better at that job.
I'm pretty sure Bobby Wood would pull a Breck Shea right now. Gideon Salam.
We've seen worse in a World Cup. We're going to the quarterfinals. Oh, yeah.
Guys, Mikel Arteta is going to unlock Gideon Zalalem. So
yeah, what a week.
Arteta
could become Arsenal manager. Watch Wenger somehow become the US manager.
It would be great for this show. All right.
That might, Chris, Pat, that might be as popular as the Missing the World Cup show with watching Chris.
I wouldn't even talk. I would just say, all right, go. I'd turn the mic off and sit back and listen to you. This is USFanTV. We have a website and whatnot and social media. It's all USFanTV. You should go and look and find our stuff and support us there.
Robert is asking, did we talk about gambling becoming legal, sports gambling becoming legal in the U.S.? Technically, it's not legal everywhere until the states approve it.
Right.
But the opportunity for it to be legal, presumably it will become legal in most states pretty soon. It's interesting. You know, I've heard people talk about how this has the opportunity to cut down on match fixing because now the gambling's out in the open. I don't understand that argument because players make more money. There are plenty of countries where players make more money. Italy, for instance, where the games are completely fixed. There are countries in which players make less money, and the games are also highly suspect.
But if you look at the potential of match fixing in the United States versus anywhere else, the sport soccer would be one of them that it's actually opportunistic for that reason. The reason why it won't happen in the NBA, it won't happen in Major League Baseball, it won't happen in the NFL is they do make too much money to throw away on a potential gambling fix. There's not enough money to be made on that where you're talking about in Italy, well, matches are totally fixed. Then they are. But it's not Juventus. It's not, well, no, what wasn't it Inter Milan? Wasn't it? Which one went all the way down? Was that Juventus?
That was AC Milan got dropped, 3 levels? 2 levels?
Was it AC Milan? Okay.
I mean, technically all the top teams got docked. They all got knocked for it. Juventus was included. But AC Milan was the one to truly get punished.
So
think about that. Once owned by your country's president, and the team was still like the most corrupt and basically the biggest team in your country. Like,
but the
Yankees were owned by a U.S. president and then got busted for match fixing or somehow rigging games.
To be fair, Chris, when you think of match fixing, you think of corruption. Other than Italy, and maybe Greece, who comes to mind?
No, Italy's the master at that. I mean, if you read the Miracle of Castel di Sangro, they would work out. It's like it wasn't just like it was understood that that's what you do.
Oh, absolutely. Alexi Lalas has talked about when he played in Italy that he was never told the game was going to be fixed, but there were certain games that they knew the outcome beforehand. One of the things I like to point out is when do they win World Cups? In years in which their country has a heavy, heavy, heavy crackdown on gambling in Serie A. So it's so corrupt that even their government has to come in and crack down. Somehow they win the World Cup that year. I'm just saying maybe there's some coincidence there. Maybe there's some coincidence. Huh?
No, and sorry, I have
no respect for Italy.
I've got to give credit to Ozzy on this one. It wasn't AC Milan; it was Juventus.
That's
Juventus
right.
is the one that got
was Juventus who got?
Yep. They got sent down in 2006.
Really? It's been a while
back
now.
in 2007, 2008. And then have since won 7 consecutive league titles because Inter Milan and AC Milan both have ownership issues and have had it for several years now. So,
all right, boys, we got to do the final words because I got to run.
Well, we spent way too much time talking about Italy, so that tells us we're at the end.
TJ, final words.
Chris has Snapchat. I'm just going to keep pointing this out every week.
Chris.
Fuck Snapchat. You're done.
World Cup's 1 month away. You're done.